Welcome to session 4 of JA Our Nation. Today for your materials you'll need your table tents, your volunteer guides. You also might want to just put your certificate of achievements in there as a reminder to get your class list if you don't already have it. The session 4 student flyers. The job cluster cards, again that's a big chunk of different cards. I actually only use one of the groups of cards. There should be a paper that's separating your different cards, so that's a good way to know where it is that you are. I again will show you how I complete the activity. I only use one of these cards. I separate the one set, the rest of them I leave whole and in my kit. You will also want your CD-ROMs for the students. At the beginning of your session, go ahead and greet the students again, distribute the table tents, review the materials from last time. Tell the students that today they're going to learn to set goals, and that setting goals is an important part in your own personal life, and share how setting goals helps you. Then define the terms that are in your book. There's quite a number of them: employer, employee, a job interview, resume, etc. So talk through that with the students, talk through their importance. And then what I do is I leave plenty of time for the actual job cluster game. So again, like I mentioned, I take a chunk of the job cluster cards, and what I do is, the way that the book explains is they have to try to get into their job clusters. The students kind of end up learning that there are different color coding systems here, and they'll just end up matching all the green. So instead what I do this is I use this as a networking event. And how I do this is I distribute, each student gets one card. They're expected to learn that they are a forester, for example on this first card, that they are in the farming, food, and nature group. And then it tells what a forester does, the education that they'll need, their skills that they'll have, as well as maybe some hobbies that they might enjoy. This will help them understand different kinds of opportunities that they have for their career choices, as well as then, like I said, a networking event. Once they've had time to read through their card, the students will get up and then they will go and introduce themselves. I talk to them a lot about how in the business world it's important to make sure that you develop relationships. And when you're meeting somebody, you're shaking their hand, you're looking them in the eye, you're thinking about what they're saying, you're repeating some of that back, and I usually demonstrate that with a student. So I'd bring a student up to the front and I would show them, "Hi, my name is Jennifer and I am so excited to meet you. So tell me, what do you do?" They should be able to tell me what the name of their job is, maybe one of the things that they do in their job, some of the skills that they need to have. Then at the end, the other person should also then say what they do and go through the same routine. At the very end, I just teach them to say, "It's very nice to meet you. I look forward to hearing more about you and seeing you more around our community." Then I have the students trade and find a new partner, and they introduce themselves to that person and that job. And again, they just mingle. I give them usually 5 minutes, then I stop and I sit all the students down and we talk through some of the different jobs, maybe some things that they liked about the jobs, some career choices that they maybe hadn't heard of, what some of the jobs have in common. If I have time, I then take out some other cards, because you'll have plenty of cards to do that a few times. I take out another set of cards, I give them a new job, and then I have the students do that networking event again. After they've had some time to play the game and learn about different jobs, I distribute the student flyers. As part of my activity this time, I really talk about the different skills that are needed and how important it is to start working on these skills in school, that many of these skills are needed to be a successful student. I also mention that even as an adult, there are some areas where I plan to develop, and that it's important to find those areas that each person has, that even as an adult, you are not an all yes in these skills columns, but everyone has areas that they need to develop, and it's important to be able to recognize those things. I mentioned to the students as well that this is confidential, that they're not turning this into their teacher, that they're not going to be graded on how they're looking at their skills, but that this is just a way for them to think about what things that they want to develop within themselves. After I get done with this, if time allows, on the inside there is a section where it talks about building a resume. Some volunteers bring in their own resume so students can understand what one looks like. And sometimes I have time to do that activity and other times I do not. So again, use that if you have the time that's allowed in your classroom. At the end of the session, I talk a lot about the skills. I review some of the different jobs and the different groups that jobs have in common, things that jobs have in common, and that it's important to find something that they enjoy doing. I tell them that on their CD-ROM, if they take that home, that is something that has a bunch of different jobs on there as well, and they can read about the different occupations that we talked about today. I collect the table contents at the end and I remind them that the next session will be the final session and will be our graduation ceremony. Before I leave the class, I do mention to the teacher if I need a class list. That way I can also make sure that I fill out my certificate of appreciation or of achievement there in the classroom for the next session. Enjoy session 4.